Hello and welcome to the TMC Newsroom. Thanks for watching. My name is Rich Tehrani. Today we are at the Telex CBX 2010 event at the Marriott Marquis in New York. And on our program is Felipe Alvarez, who is the president of RCN Metro. Felipe, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for being on the program, and I was hoping we could start with a quick overview of your company.
Sure. RCN Metro is a facilities-based provider of services. We provide high availability, high bandwidth type of networks for mission-critical apps for financial services firms, service providers, enterprise firms, anyone who needs a near custom solution, high bandwidth, high availability, fully insured networks, if you will.
And what's your sense on what enterprises are looking for from a company like you now?
For RCN Metro, what we see quite a bit of is companies that are looking not just for the facilities, the fiber, end-to-end, as well as the technology behind it and the service. They're looking for service levels. They're looking for the wrapper, what I call the soft wrapper, having to do with support, having to do with pre-sale, implementation, and post-sale support, as well as flexibility and understanding of the dynamics of the market.
So in terms of what's enabled your company to be successful, what do you think your keys to success have been?
It starts, I'll start at the bottom. Layer one, facilities-based 100%, fiber-based 100%, then built upon that and say, look, we have diverse routes, we have standard routes, we have a very large number of locations, over 1,400, so it gives a lot of connectivity potential to companies that are looking to go from, let's say, financial center in New York to financial center in Chicago. Outside of that, it's also the technology. We've been one of the early adopters of Ethernet, started at the back end of 2002.
Good choice, good timing.
It was the best thing that we ever did. And at the beginning, we just did a few circuits. We didn't realize how quickly it was going to grow. And in a year, we had a massive network that we had to understand how to manage to the next step of the evolution of it.
Yeah, because 2002 was way, way early.
We were one of the first implementers. You know, we had the opportunity, we did it, tried it out. The momentum behind Ethernet has just kept going since then. It's our fastest growing service. And we offer both MPLS-based switched as well as point-to-point. And financial services, for example, is one of the biggest buyers of Ethernet services with us.
Why do you think that is?
Latency. We have one of the best metro distribution networks for Ethernet in both Chicago and New York, and as well as Boston. So they buy for latency. They buy also because they've been a client of RCN Metro for starting with the New York Stock Exchange back in the 01-02 time frame. So we understand the dynamics of the industry. We understand that if we fail just for a microsecond, they're down that they can't trade. So that gives us an edge over the competition.
That's great. Now tell me about the Extreme Network. How's that working out?
That is, it's exceeding the expectations sales-wise. And one of the things that we're doing with it is, besides being an any-to-any connectivity, ultra-low latency network, we're expanding on it. So even before we lit the first component of the network, we added a secondary set of locations to it. We just expanded that into Toronto, link it to Toronto, and we're looking at a couple of other locations to do that. So it's a very robust, it's SLA-backed, ultra-low latency network with very quick provisioning times.
So we can expect a great deal of network expansion?
From us, yes. Always looking for that opportunity, whether it's organic growth, and we have a couple of major bills that we'll be announcing probably in the next 2 or 3 months, as well as any kind of strategic acquisition, top M&A type of activity.
Now in Chicago and Toronto, I know you've got connectivity you just mentioned. Are there any things interesting happening in those markets right now?
Well, Chicago is an emerging, the futures trading side of things. It's extremely dynamic. There's a lot of interest not only in getting ultra-low latency connectivity in Chicago Metro and its environs, but also connectivity to New York and the New York financial centers, such as Northern Jersey. So they are part of what we're doing with Extreme Network is we have a high-density colo development on 165 Halsey Street, which is almost like an equidistant point for a lot of the data centers and a lot of the what we call the exchange points. So all of that is kind of percolating, a lot of it coming out of Chicago. So it's gaining momentum. New York has always been the center of the world financially.
Sure.
And Toronto's interesting because Toronto is home for one of the most stable financial communities in the last 2 years, which is the Toronto banking, the Canadian banking side of things. And there's also interest in starting to expand that connectivity.
Great. Now, in terms of other industries, I know you mentioned that you have a broad customer base at the beginning of this segment.
Yes.
But are there other industries besides financial that you see as emerging spaces that you're focusing on?
Yes. Financials represent about a third of our revenue stream. Another third comes from wireless carriers. Another third comes from basically the wireline carriers. And then there's a small sliver that I call enterprise, which is everything else. And that's where we see a lot of growth. healthcare, for example, is an area that is starting to adopt the same kind of Ethernet parameters that financial services does. And this is because of the imaging requirements, low latency requirements, all of that. So we're going to be focused on healthcare, education, government, areas we're in, but we're expanding that kind of presence.
Now in healthcare, I would imagine they're scanning a lot more of their documents trying to get automated as well, right?
Yes, there's an enormous amount of data requirements, and much of it has to be data that's delivered on time, real time or delayed, but on time and without any kind of loss.
Well, that's great. Well, Felipe, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank
it was
you.
a pleasure to meet you. Yeah,
Likewise.
good luck.
Thank you.